Homo Magister hated Darwin's story of man's origins. But he had to accept it, at least superficially, because Darwin and all the other biologists who supported the stories were members of Homo Magister. He couldn't ignore it completely, but he could do the next best thing. He could make it meaningless. Then he wouldn't have to think about it, because you don't have to think about irrelevant, meaningless things. And so he revised the story of mankind. Okay, it's true that man was around for 3 million years or so before Homo Magister appeared to rule the world. But that doesn't mean anything. There's nothing to think about in that, because nothing was happening in those 3 million years. People weren't doing anything, because they weren't fully human. They were biologically human, of course, but they weren't fully human because they weren't accomplishing anything. They weren't trying to accomplish anything. They weren't trying to master their environment. Fully human people just naturally want to master their environment. It's innate in people who are fully human. Fully human life didn't begin with Homo habilis or Homo erectus or even Homo sapiens. It began with Homo Magister, with man the agriculturalist and civilization builder, with me. Everything worth knowing, I discovered. Everything worth having, I invented. Everything worth doing, I have done, or will do. Nothing people knew before that was worth knowing. Nothing people had before that was worth having. Nothing people did before that was worth doing. God knew that. God never spoke to Homo habilis or Homo erectus. He didn't even speak to Homo sapiens for the first 200,000 years of his life. God wouldn't waste his time talking to savages. He was waiting for someone worth talking to. Someone fully human. Someone smart enough to recognize the destiny he had set for man. Someone who could appreciate him. Someone civilized. He was waiting for me. In mankind's life story, the 200,000 generations that lived and died before me don't count for anything. So you don't have to think about them. They lived and died for nothing, except, in the end, to produce me, the ruler of the world. Homo Magister was ultimately forced to overcome his repugnance to the idea that the Earth is not the astronomical center of the universe. To get on with his mastery of the world, he was forced to deal with this repellent idea. He was forced to build a totally new astronomy based on it. If he hadn't, he would have made a fool of himself on the way to the moon. But he has not yet been forced to deal meaningfully with the fact that his story, the story of man, the ruler of the world, represents only 0.5% of the whole story of man. He hasn't built a totally new understanding of the story based on that fact. He doesn't want to. But if he doesn't, he's going to make an even worse fool of himself than just getting lost on the way to the moon. He's going to become extinct.